Welcome to the Recover You podcast. I'm Kylene.
And I'm Patrick.
We are a couple in recovery
From sex addiction
and betrayal trauma. Together, we share our story to encourage you on your journey. It's here that we talk about sex addiction, betrayal trauma, mental, emotional, and physical health, faith, and anything and everything needed to recover you to your most authentic self that God created you to be. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Recover You. Hello, Patrick.
Hello, Kylene.
How are you today?
I'm good. Good. Feeling good today. A little tired. It's a Sunday afternoon, which is always fun to take a quick nap or long nap on the couch while some meaningless football game is on in the background. As in today's example, it was the Lions against the Browns. So for those of you who are either Lions or Browns fans, I don't believe that you're meaningless. It's just
let's just dig the hole, Patrick.
Yeah.
Those of you who like football, those of you who like this particular team.
Yeah.
Patrick is a football fan. He just has particular teams, and this wasn't it today.
Yeah. It was a good napping game, though. Good napping game.
Let's not push our listeners away. All right. So today we're going to talk about navigating some difficult things after betrayal and discovery and infidelity. And some of the most common things that come up are three things: wedding anniversaries, discovery anniversaries, or periods of time where we found information out or something big happened sort of in that first year, and then what to do about the rings. So we're going to kind of talk about all three of those things because as a betrayed partner, those are really complicated issues. So I'm going to obviously come from the betrayed partner's perspective. I'm just going to start also by saying we're going to share some thoughts, and I'm going to share what a lot of betrayed partners will share or have said that they feel around these, but also recognize that if you feel differently, that's totally okay. Everybody is unique with these things. There's no like morality with this. There's no right or wrong with the answers around this. I'm just going to kind of talk about my experience and what I think is pretty common in the betrayal scene and what I talk about with clients and kind of what I hear and the universality of it.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of start with the idea that for betrayed partners, we really, 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 really need the addict or the person who's committed the infidelity to understand that for us, there is not this clarity that you may have, which says what moments were sincere and which ones were the addiction or the betrayal, right? Like, we just know that while we felt safe, we were not safe. And while we felt fine and happy and oblivious in the relationship, we have now found out that bad things were happening. So for us, when we find that out, it is a blanket that covers everything because of the lies and manipulation that allowed that to happen. So it's like living in the world and then realizing that it's the Truman Show. And that's the level to which it is so disorienting for us to really go, I thought I knew who you were. And I'll, like, from my perspective, kind of share too, because I knew you for like almost for sure, like a whole decade before all this came out. Like, that's a long period of time. And I know other people find out multiple decades in but not always. Sometimes people find out a couple years in or really early on, but it's like a piece and then they find out more later. So it's different for everybody. But I found out, a decade is a long time to know somebody. I was around you like a lot in that period of time, right? So for me not to know that you had this whole thing going was very, very disruptive to me, and just seemed so antithesis to the person that you presented to me and the person that I thought I knew, right? So when as a betrayed partner, we sort of have to figure out, okay, who are you, first of all, right, as we go through recovery, and then what is real now. And so I think asking someone to, as a betrayed person who has had that pain, asking them to hold on to something because you think that it still feels good for you because you knew the truth around it, like an anniversary as an example, I think you're going to have to let that go. And I say that in the kindest of ways that I can, because that's, for many people, impossible for us to go. It's real. There's so much negative that is now, the blanket has covered everything. We don't know because we were not in your head. You were in your head. We were not in your head. So we can't go, oh, but on our anniversary, he was always totally sincere with me. Because the reality for us is that even if you were in that moment totally sincere, totally present, and totally all about our relationship, you were still lying. So I think that's the piece that people really need to understand. Like when we're going to talk about these things, is that is an incredibly difficult thing for our brain to process. That someone that is good and somebody that we thought we knew did something really, really bad. And then on top of that, asking us to sort of separate specific things like, oh, this thing was good, or this date was good, or this gift I gave you was okay. Like, that's hard for most of us to do, I think. Yeah. And so we just look at it all as you were lying, you were manipulative, you hurt me. And in that part of your life, while you were doing those things, we got married, or you gave me this gift, or this thing happened. And so for us, the lying and the manipulation covers all of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I also know that for the addict, sometimes the well-meaning addict, the one that wants to change and is really trying and stuff like that, what ends up happening is you're trying to latch on to goodness, right? And the goodness might be the aspects of your relationship where you're like, no, this really means a lot to me, and this is really special. And versus, like you're saying, the betrayed partner feels differently. So you can have a little bit of a juxtaposition in feelings there, whereas like the addict wants to go, but our anniversary is the one area of goodness that I know of, and so it is a hard thing because you've got to, and I think for the first time in what could be both parties' lives is they're having to take on more of a both and. I think a lot of people don't understand that. So a both and is like, yes, it does mark our anniversary, and it's not something I want to celebrate. Right. And so like that's actually a very healthy attitude over a lot of things. You know what I mean? Like it really, and like I never really knew what that meant till I started to get into more of the healing work and things like that. So I think it is a challenge because it's for me, and I don't speak for all addicts, but for me, it was hard for me to understand that particular aspect was going away because it was something I could put my hat back on relative to hopefully some sense of propriety, right? That I knew that I had not carried in so many other ways, right? So it was just kind of like, it was almost like, that one rock that you can cling to. And that was going away too. So it was very unsettling in a lot of ways.
Well, as you're talking, one of the things I thought about is that like real recovery requires the death of the ego. I think for the addict, right? And I think the ego really wants to hold on to, but this, but I did a good thing here, but I was really sincere here. But like, I just want to defend this part of my life, right? And it's like, you have to understand that life is not compartmentalized like that. Right. The bad thing that you did seeps out everywhere. And so I think to really recover in a relationship with someone you've hurt, the addict has to get to the place where they accept responsibility and all of the consequences that come with that. Right. And that's one of the unfortunate consequences, because you do know where you were sincere. You do know what parts of your life were so innocent and you were holding on to the good, and you were like, that was the good, clean, true, joyous part of your life, right? But you have to realize, like, we're not in your body, we're not in your brain. We can't feel those same things. So for us, just as much as that might hold light to you, it might hold darkness for us. And so I think recovery for the addict sometimes does require that death of the ego, where it goes, for the greater good and for the health of my betrayed partner's mental health, I'm not going to press this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm also
Absolutely.
not going to defend my character because I've proven in so many different ways that it was not good throughout that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I hear what you're saying, because for the addict, when everything is coming out and you realize like it's kind of a hard balance beam, right? Because you have to get to the point where you take responsibility and you understand the level to which, and one of the things that I see sometimes is when people struggle to recover when they've cheated or lied or manipulated or had an addiction or whatever, they kind of struggle with getting to the place where they fully admit how bad it was, or for fully taking responsibility. It's like, okay, in order to get better and to release shame, and I think this is the juxtaposition sometimes that is confusing. In order to be able to release shame, you actually have to go all the way to the bottom where you accept the reality, the total reality. If you can never get there because you keep living in denial and keep not accepting like how bad things were for you or for your partner, then you're going to be stuck in this sort of like blah middle zone where you're sort of taking responsibility, but it is not hitting for the betrayed partner because they can tell that it did not go to the heart level. And so it does kind of stink, because you have to get to this place where you're like, yeah, I really messed this up.
Oh yeah.
But you're at the same time that you do that, you can still know that there's a part of you, just like the addict part is a part of you and it doesn't define who you are. You can still hold on to, there's a piece of me that wanted to do good things and wanted to move towards the light and wanted to honor my relationship with my partner and whatever, right? And so I think that can maybe come into the conversation too as we talk about some of these specific things, because I know that you talked about some of the emotions and the intentions that were infused into, you know, our marriage day, for example, or when you gave me the ring, or, you know, whatever. So I think that's, you know, that, and that's not wrong for you to hold on to. It would be wrong if you tried to push me to come to the place that I can't come to with those things, if that makes sense.
Well, and you know, you just mentioned like the marriage day or the, you know, the engagement. Like, I know I worked very hard on those 2 days. I know that you know, the comments I made and the actions I had, I know they were all very, you know, deep from the heart. They, you know, but I also know that I was a wounded man, you know, back then. I was very, you know what I mean? Like I hadn't engaged in any healing work. And so, you know, when you haven't engaged in any healing work, you're always at a slight disadvantage. You're not being able to show up fully as yourself, right? And so I can state both of those, right? I can say, and I also understand. So, like, you know, early on in recovery, you were like, well, was this legitimate, or was this, you know, like, you had every right to ask those questions. And so I think that is another impact is a betrayed partner early on in the discovery phase may ask a ton of questions that relative to key events, like, well, did this even mean anything to you? Did this, and it's part of that anger and surprise and grief that they're going through upon having learned about this. So that's just part of that process. I think I've certainly seen it in you, that I think you've developed a little bit more of a nuanced view of some of those events. I think it's, you know, you're just able to kind of, I think, see the picture a little bit better. It doesn't mean that you're like, yay, I'm going to walk around in my wedding dress. You know what I mean? Like, you know, that's not your intent or anything like that.
Very unfortunately, I don't even think it fits me anymore.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just, you know, I think you're, you know, and I think part of that too is probably because I've never really pushed it. Right, I've never been like, oh, come on, we should talk about our wedding anniversary. Hey, you know, like, I don't forward you the Facebook photos. I don't, you know, like, I don't like.
Let's break these down into specific categories and talk about each one of them. So we're starting to talk about the wedding anniversary, right? So right away, because that was like 5 months before the anniversary. Right away, I was like, we are 100% not celebrating this. We had someone in the house recently, and I was. Who just got engaged, and she's very excited, and I was like super happy for her, and we were talking about stuff, and she was asking about our wedding, and I was showing her some of the pictures that I had on Facebook, and she was flipping through, and it was fine actually, and I think had this been like 2 or 3 years ago, I don't know if it would have
been harder, yeah.
But it was fine. But even with how fine it was, I still had a little bit of like this grief and sadness come up as I was like, I don't personally want to spend a lot of time sitting and sifting through and looking at these and spending time sitting there and thinking about this, right? But it was less uncomfortable having her kind of flip through and knowing that she was looking at them. So then it would have been maybe years ago. But we decided, well, I decided, and that's where I think we can talk about that. But I decided that this was not something that I wanted to celebrate. And I think we always have to go, this is my personal opinion, we always have to go with the safest option. So when we talk about this with boundaries, when there's a more conservative boundary that will help one of the people in the relationship feel safe, we should probably go with that one. When there's something like this that's a trigger for one of the partners, now, we always talk about, triggers being a reflection of an unhealed wound. So there are certain situations where it's like, okay, is this healthy or is this unhealthy? Is there work that I need to do on my part, right? But I think in these particular situations, they're very specific to the pain that has happened, and they are very specific to the two of you. And where there is such significant pain, let's not try to like press open the wound. You know what I mean? Like, and I have done so much healing that, to your point, my thoughts have shifted on them tremendously. The amount of pain that thinking about certain things, like a date or the rings or whatever, holds for me now is way less than it was 4 years ago. Way, way less. And there's a couple things that I'm glad that I did or did not do. For example, I did take down all of our wedding photos that were in the house.
I think it made me take them down.
Did I make you take them down? Yeah.
I remember I went and it was like the walk of shame in a way, because I went and I got the step ladder and I was like taking them down.
Serves you.
I know.
Right.
But I remember that.
It should have been that way. Anyway.
You were like, there's one up there on the right. I was like, okay.
Well, I think I made you take the ones down that were on the wall. So that's fair. Yeah. But anyway, that's funny. Yeah. It should, as you should. Yeah. Listen, anytime, and I'm just going to be honest about this. If you are an addict listening, I know that you have a mentality towards healing. I know that you want to heal. Part of that is going to be taking the consequences like that. Like, there's crap like this that happens where one person doesn't want to look at the wedding photos, and like, you made that happen. I'm sorry to say it that way, but that's because of your behavior. Right. So this is a consequence of what you did. And so, yeah, I think to your point, if one of the people wants it to come down, like, you should have been the one to help me out with that. And anyway, not that I couldn't have if I like was really mad one day or whatever, but it was a conscious choice that I was making. Hey, I'm taking these down, and we need to take these, because we had like a bunch of like romantic statements up on the wall, and I was like, I cannot right now. You need to take down the photos. You need to take down these romantic statements. Blah blah blah. So we did take all of the wedding pictures out of the, visible off the walls and things like that. But what I did not do was throw them away, because I did not know, this all happened probably within the first 6 months. I did not know how I would feel years later. So they are all still currently in a drawer, and I have not put them back up, and I don't know that I will ever put them up. But I did have sort of this idea, and maybe it was something a therapist said to me, or maybe it was just an awareness of like, hey, emotions are high right now, and I don't want to do something I will regret later. But I did not get rid of them. I wasn't like tearing them up. I wasn't, destroying the frames or anything like that. I just said, not right now. This is not a representation of where I feel good right now. We're taking them down, but I'm putting them in a drawer. So that was one thing.
The one thing I'll say too, it's like, is I was going through that process. Of course I was sad. Of course I was like, well, this kind of stinks that I'm taking this down. But I also knew that, my behavior had caused that. But I also felt, and sometimes people will latch on to things, I also knew that, man, I had so much work to do. Right. And so like, if I was gonna try to make a case for pictures to be up, I was kind of missing the point. You know what I mean? I had to understand, like, what was the root of why I had done all of this? What was going on? How do I get systems in place to make sure I don't do this again? Like, I was so concerned with that, you know what I mean? And so it's like, as much as it did make me sad, and I was really seeing day to day the consequences of what I had done. But it was just, I remember thinking that, like, and I think I've always had somewhat of a clear head and prioritization. And so to me, I was like, that's the lowest priority thing in the world. I've got a lot of other energy, and I only have so much energy in a day.
Yeah, totally.
So, because I don't think I think you were like, hey, take them down. I was like, okay.
Oh, yeah. I don't
like
even
I was
think
a handyman in the house. I
don't even think there was a conversation about it. I just needed it done. You did it. Yeah. But so that kind of was wrapping into the conversation of the wedding anniversary, though. And that was difficult for you. And it was pretty quick for me where I was like, I don't want to celebrate it. It didn't feel good to me to think of it romantically. I felt an extreme amount of pain around... Okay, so what does the wedding anniversary represent, right? It represents the day that you promised things to each other, the day that you stood up in front of the world and God and said, I'm choosing you, you're my person, and these are my commitments to you. And to me, thinking about that was extremely hurtful because I felt like you promised me all these things, you said all these things, and then you basically like hid this life from me and cheated on me and like looked at all these other women. And I was like, everything in my mind about what that meant was destroyed. And so I was like, I definitely don't feel good about, viewing it as like any sort of romantic day, but it also kind of felt weird to like not acknowledge that it was happening because it was really soon. It was like 4 or 5 months after discovery, right? So I think there was this in-between place where I was like, we're definitely not going to a romantic dinner, but also if you don't give me a card that day, it will hurt my feelings.
Well, there was a lot of that in early discovery where it's like, you're like, I don't want to see you right now. So you're like, got it. And I leave and you're like, well, you're not supposed to walk away. I'm like, got that too. And then you come back. And so like, I do remember hold on. Like in my mind, I was like, okay, she doesn't want to celebrate it. Got it. However, I probably need to acknowledge it. And I did. And I think I
verbalized that, though, is what I was going to say. I do think I told you, hey, I don't want to really do anything, but I'm pretty sure it will hurt my feelings if you don't at least like give me a card or something. I'm pretty sure I did verbalize that. And that's actually something I encourage my clients to do. Like because sometimes we don't know until it happens, but if it comes into your awareness that if your partner will do or not do something that will hurt your feelings, make sure you verbalize that.
Yeah, we're not mind readers.
Yeah, well, and I feel like sometimes we don't know until the moment. Like we might say, I don't want to celebrate it at all. I don't want to recognize it. I don't want to talk about it. And then the day comes, you're like, well, this feels weird, right? Yeah. So be willing to kind of work through that. But I do think if it comes into your consciousness, make sure you verbalize that because they're not sure. They can really only go off of what you communicate. So if I said, don't say anything about it, and then we went that whole day and I was like, you didn't even give me a card, you'd be like, I just did what you told me to do, Yeah. So I think one of the things that I want to share is like 3 ideas that can carry you through all of these things that we're going to talk about today. And that is 1, don't fake it. Okay. So don't be making these decisions based on some sort of idea of what should be. Okay. Because it shouldn't. There is no should here. You're going through something completely new. You don't know how you're going to feel. You didn't expect this. You didn't plan this. You didn't agree to this. There is no should. So ditch perception. Drop the caring about what other people think if you do or do not post about your anniversary or whatever on Facebook. There is no should here, okay? So whatever you do when you're making these decisions about anniversaries, about rings, about whatever, wearing them, don't wearing them, we're going to talk about all of that. But number 1, do not fake it because through this process, that if we are moving as individuals towards healing, that should also mean that we are moving towards authenticity. And so what we don't want to do is be putting things out there publicly, not publicly, or even just between each other, that's fake. So anything that feels insincere or not congruent with what you're actually feeling as you're navigating this process, just don't do it. Or if you start to do something because you think you're okay with it and then it feels a little off, say it out loud and stop doing it and say, we got to change. This is not going to work for me.
Sometimes what was interesting about us, or what's actually interesting about a lot of anniversaries is sometimes, there's other people at play. There's parents involved, there's kids, there is in-laws and all these different things. And so like, it's okay to tell people like, hey, we're not celebrating our anniversary. Like it really is okay.
Yeah, we had to go through that. Yeah, and it is uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is uncomfortable, but it's like, you don't want to, we have to, put on a good face because
the thing is, we weren't celebrating it. And then I would get a text and it would make me cry. And it would really like hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
Or like even I think it happened 1 year after we told people and I still got a text and we really had to kind of lay it out. We're like, hey, we really are not celebrating this. Because then it just felt like I wasn't being seen and that really hurt my feelings. But so I think it is uncomfortable and I definitely don't want to, you know, this whole process sucks. Like I'm not going to lie about that. But as much as it's uncomfortable, let's not fake it.
Right.
Because the more we can be honest with ourselves and with others, and the more we can choose authentically through this process what's going to work for us, the better it's going to go for everybody long term. But if we choose perception over authenticity, we are internally going to have this conflict and feel uncomfortable. And that's going to keep going as long as we do that. And that's going to really slow down or limit or completely halt our progress in healing. So there's no right or wrong here, but whatever you do choose to do, make sure you're doing it authentically. And that sometimes means that you change your mind when you learn that, oh, that didn't work for me. The second, I don't know if you want to call it principle or idea, is come to an agreement. So make sure you're both in agreement. So I was talking to a client about wedding anniversaries the other day, and he's a betrayed partner. And one of the things that I suggested to him was I was like, hey, you know, like this has come up before and it's coming up again. You guys really need to just come to an agreement because for him, he feels like most betrayed partners, like I'm not ready to celebrate it. I don't want to celebrate it. But his wife was every year it's like she's like, oh, well, maybe we can celebrate it this year. And she kind of gets excited, right? And so what I told him was both of you are like getting disappointed by this. Her hopes are getting up that maybe we'll celebrate it. You're getting stressed because you don't want to celebrate it. And you know, she kind of does. So you guys really just have to come to an agreement about what's going to be done and then just decide. And that's going to help so much because then she doesn't get her hopes up and then you don't have to worry about it. But like the decision is made. But like the agreement has to be come to. So definitely talk about as these things come up, especially in the first year, but definitely year 2, year 3, because things shift. Make sure you're having these ongoing conversations as these things come up and make sure you come to an agreement. And then the third thing is going to be sort of wrapped into that. Make sure to communicate through the process as things change. And I will share a little bit like how my thoughts and emotions have changed through this process around some of these things. And as healing occurs and as safety deepens in the relationship, it probably will. Like I said, even just having somebody look at and you know, say really nice things about the wedding photos the other day, it still held a twinge for me, but it wasn't like I didn't spiral, you know, whereas I don't know what I would have done 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So things do definitely change. So we want you to be authentic, come to an agreement about these things. So make sure you're talking about them and then keep communicating through the process as things change.
It's funny, right? As you're saying that, I was like, that's the definition of healing all the way, you know, that you are able to communicate what's on your mind. You're able to, you know, not agree to things that you don't necessarily feel great in. You're authentic and that's like, how do you deal with your boss? How do you raise your children? You know what I mean? Like it's
that's all. That's what I always say about this podcast, though. You know, it's like under the umbrella of addiction and you know betrayal, but really it's just humanness, like how to be good people, right? How to be good humans. Okay, so wedding anniversary. So we started with like not celebrating it at all, and then except that I did definitely want like a card or like I felt like you to acknowledge it. Some of the grief that came for me was that. In my mind, like we all have little milestones in life that we sort of look towards, right? And for me, that was like a year and a half. Discovery was like a year and a half before our 10-year anniversary or something like that. And our whole marriage, I had been looking forward to like hitting the 10-year mark. And like that was like a big, for whatever reason, a big deal for me. I wanted to hit 10. I wanted it to be a big celebration. I was like really excited about hitting 10 years. For me, that was a big deal. So when all of us came out, one of the things that really held a lot of grief for me was realizing that was going to be gone, that was not an option for me, and that was never an option for me, and that I was not going to be able to replace that in any way, right? And so that was really hard. But at the same time, I wasn't going to be like, well, it's our 10-year anniversary. I'm just going to... It would not have felt right for me to push through something just because it was, because that was like a year and a half in and that was not a good time. So eventually, over the past several years, it almost doesn't even cross my mind. I mean, it's like I'm aware, but it's like I can go through that day and I'm not sad about it. I'm not worried about it. I'm not thinking about it. It's just it's turned into another day for me. It doesn't hold a lot of, I don't know. For me, it doesn't hold a lot of stress. What about you?
Well, to me, it's like I always, where I've come to on it is, we did get married on June 14th. Like you can't.
No, that's my birthday. We did not get married on June 14th.
And that concludes
We got
this
married
podcast.
on June 15th.
June 15th. Yes, thank you. Yeah,
there you go.
Well, now we've uncovered some issues. No, but like, we physically.
That was so perfect.
I know, really.
We did get married on it so definitively on this day.
Yeah.
No, we didn't.
No, we didn't. So restarting. We actually definitely got married on June 15th. Like, you can't take that away. That's actually the date of our marriage.
Right.
So, when people say, hey, how long have you been married? We're not going to get all weird about it.
Well, I'm weird about it because, like, I don't even remember now.
Yeah.
That's one thing that for me, when I stopped counting the anniversaries, I was like, I don't know how long we've like, I don't even know.
Yeah.
Like, it just went out of my brain when I stopped counting the anniversaries.
Right. So I guess the way
I can tell them the year we got married.
Yeah. Well, and you and I talked about it this year, like just because we're not celebrating a marriage doesn't mean that I can't. Right. And so, like, I've gotten to that point because I actually, and this has taken me a little while to get there, because I was like, as much as I hate that I did this and I really blew up the marriage, man, I'm so thankful for you, because had it not been for you through that period, I don't know if I would have made it. Right. And so, like, and our marriage was, our marriage was part of what got us there, because we were a married couple, and you were able to be able to be there for me as I went through this, you know what I mean? This recovery piece. Yeah. So I'm very thankful for that. I'm very thankful that we met. I'm very thankful that we got married. But it's just, it's the opportunity for me to, it's almost like, in a way, it's almost like, thinking about, and this is, I don't know if I'm really going to be even able to communicate this, but the way I celebrate it, it's kind of the way I celebrate my mom who's passed away, her birthday. You know what I mean? I go, hey, it's a fond memory for me, and for me to kind of look at it. And, I certainly don't call my mom anymore because she's not here anymore. You know what I mean? And stuff like that. But I think about it. So to me, it's a way for me to, respect what you want, and then also say, hey, I still am thankful for that.
Yeah. And that's absolutely fine, because that is your reality and that is special to you. And what would be wrong is if, because it's special to you, you came up one day and made it a big deal for me once I've said that I don't want that.
Right.
And that would be really uncomfortable, right? And I would be like, sorry?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's absolutely fine. And we did pick another day, but it was so funny because what we're finding out now is, like, even that feels a little weird.
Yeah.
So we're trying to figure it out. We haven't really solidified. And some people, and I've heard this too, and this works for some couples. So again, we're not like, saying the way I feel about it is, the universal way to feel about it or the right way or anything like that. There are some couples that say, I really want to reclaim that specific day. And so maybe they'll do a vow renewal on that day, or they'll have a ceremony of some sort to sort of reclaim that day and make it new while still keeping the same anniversary date. So that's totally fine too. And actually, with the awkwardness that we've sort of found trying to find a day to celebrate, like, I get why people would do that totally. Yeah. 'Cause it's like the legal date and it makes more sense and all this kind of stuff. But I just, it's different for everybody, but I do absolutely want to validate that, like, if it does not feel right, don't rush it. Just don't rush it. It's really okay. And you talked about this, I don't know, several episodes ago when we were talking about something similar, celebrating our relationship. You're like, it's more about the relationship day to day than it is about a specific day. Right. And so I think sometimes we can get really hung up on what a date represents. And it's like, I'm not too concerned about it at this point, because over the course of our lives, we'll figure it out. Whether we ever find something to celebrate and we feel really aligned with that, or we don't, and we just keep going along the way we do, the way we are. It's fine. It'll be fine. But right now, we don't officially recognize it. You've chosen to privately celebrate, but you don't come and make any big deal about it to me. We have a separate day that we kind of recognize as like, hey, and this year we were like, what do we call it? Like, I love you day, we're together day. Like, I don't even know. Like, so we were kind of navigating that too. Like, I don't even know. Yeah. So we'll figure it out. But I just want to share, like, all of that is normal. All of that is okay. There is no universal, every betrayed partner should feel this way.
Yeah. Right. If by year, whatever.
And that's the thing too. My only concern is if any of this decision making maybe happened like year one. I feel like the first year is so fraught with stabilization. I think when long-term decisions are made in that first year, it's like, are you going to feel that way next year? Are you going to, like, you know what I mean? So just giving yourself the time that you need. Giving yourself that time. Okay, so then the second type of anniversary that comes up for people is discovery anniversaries. And this is a real thing where I don't think for me it has showed up a lot unless it's just very subconscious, like, oh, I'm depressed today and I don't really know why. That did happen a couple times where like you would look at, your journal when I would be kind of down and you'd be like, actually, like 1 or 2 years ago, this was happening around this time. So it can happen. I think consciously for me, it hasn't been like, well, August 17th, I had done a Google search and I found XYZ and that particular, you know what I mean? Like for me, those dates weren't really, we kind of know the big discovery date, but outside of that, there weren't any like big dates that I was like, annually I recognize this. But there are betrayed partners that have, like I was talking to a client the other day and this is coming into the time of year where there was like a big second discovery and it's really painful. And so there's fear, there's anxiety, there's nervousness associated with that, right? So the same things are going to apply, I think, which is don't feel like you have to fake it. If you're not okay, you're not okay. Make sure you come to an agreement, like talk to your partner about, hey, this is what's coming up for me, right? And so, hopefully your partner is somebody that can be empathetic and surround you more through this time, and then keep talking through things as they change. Like that's going to be really important because sometimes you might wake up one day and feel bad, and then remember that that's a year ago that a really bad discovery happened or, whatever it is.
Yeah, I feel, that occasionally in my own mind, I always, because I started to be discovered at that local restaurant in town, that steakhouse. Yeah. And so there's a lot of times when I think there's an advertisement for another steakhouse at the airport. So when I land a lot, I always end up thinking about this. But I'm always like, I'd like to reclaim that restaurant because it's a pretty good restaurant. But then I'm like, oh, who cares? You know what I mean? Like almost. I'm
not against that. I think we could go.
Yeah. But I also feel like once again, it's all the same rules. It's got to be authentic. You can't like force it. You know what I mean? And stuff like that. And so, your body remembers trauma. Your body, for the longest time.
We maybe should not sit at the same table because of that.
I'm cool with that. Yeah.
Maybe we could sit in a different area of the restaurant. I don't know.
Yeah, but because it's just like, like it was such a painful moment. And actually me and one of my friends were talking this past Saturday and he and I kind of went through discovery about the same time. And we were just laughing like, oh my gosh, that was horrible. It was horrible for everybody. It was just a really, just tough all the way around. So it's like, it would be nice to kind of reclaim those things, especially as you've gotten some victory. And especially as if if your relationship has recovered to a degree, like, hey, it's nice to be able to kind of put a pin in it. But it doesn't have to be, I think, like it's one thing to reclaim a restaurant. It's another thing to reclaim an anniversary, right? It could still be, it's easier to reclaim a restaurant, possibly. It's harder to reclaim an anniversary, right? And so I don't know. I feel like these, you just have to check in. You just have to kind of, because like you were talking about the other date that we like this year, the date was really cool. Last year when we were celebrating,
what date? The discovery date?
No, the new date that we had said
the
for
celebration date.
Like I was not feeling it. I was really off about it, and
this year.
Last year.
Oh, I felt like we were both kind of off about it this year.
Yeah, well, this year I wasn't awkward about it. I was kind of like, hey, we're going to have a nice little celebration. We just called it whatever, and it was fine. But we were in Curacao last year, and I was not. I was just, and it was. I remember being nervous to kind of communicate that because I didn't want to hurt your feelings. But if you're not, if you're not like, ta-da, gung ho, well, then you can pick up on that lack of energy too. You know what I mean? So I guess, I get it. So we're talking about like discovery anniversaries or hard things, or your first polygraph, or if you fail the polygraph and you're stressed out, like those trauma memories are going to come back up. They are going to come back up. And to your point, over time, they may lessen in intensity, but you may still feel it. I mean, I still, my car accident was in 2005, was on Thanksgiving morning in 2005. I will tell you, every Thanksgiving morning that I have woken up since then, and it is abated. It's not as intense as it used to be, but I think about it. You know what I mean? So, and I probably always will. Yeah. You know what I mean? I probably always will, because it was a major trauma in my life.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So anyway,
no, that's a good point, because I was saying, like, I don't necessarily have the date associations that might be very associated with my ADD, because I can't remember anything. But for other people, they may relate to what you just said, which is like, I remember the date. I remember it very clearly, and every year it's a thing for me, right? So the point around that is, again, kind of what I was saying earlier is, when something comes up into your consciousness, make sure that you're communicating that. If you know that this is a busy season of your life and you guys tend to not communicate as much, or if it's coming into a period of time where there were a lot of new discoveries, or there was a big period of trauma and you're already getting nervous about it, make sure you communicate that. And hopefully on the other side, if it is the betrayed partner, things can be going great. It doesn't matter if this is a trauma memory coming up. You have the body, the nervous system does not recognize time. So if it is getting activated, it's getting activated, and it's taking that person back to the moment of the pain that they experienced. So you being the person that caused that pain, you need to be present with them in that moment, like it just happened. So, I know that people listening to this would never say, "Oh, but this happened 3 years ago." But just in case that would come up, don't be saying things like that, because the nervous system doesn't know. Now, what will give you the most success to having these experiences lessen over time is if the betrayed partner can sit in the moment of pain, take the responsibility, empathize, be with the person in the moment of pain, and do that consistently. And then if the individual is also working through their own pain, allowing it to move through, acknowledging it, letting it be fully expressed, that sort of thing. If those two things are in place, then the likelihood that year over year it will lessen is significant. But if there's resistance, so resistance from the betrayed partner to acknowledge the pain, so they're shoving it down, they're denying it, they're afraid to talk about it, they feel whatever about it, and they push it down in some way, avoid it, numb it, distract, deny it, whatever, then it will stick around. Anything that's not recognized or expressed will stay. Or if they have the bravery to express it, and they're person that has hurt them goes, well, you should be over it already, and they don't give them the safe place to express that pain, then that is also going to extend the period of time, because that just poured acid on the wound instead of helping it heal. Right.
Yeah. It's like, oh gosh, we're rehashing this again.
Yes, we are.
You know what I mean? And so like
welcome to recovery.
Yeah. It's okay. Here's the thing I would tell the recovering addict is, the more you reach out with empathy, the way your betrayed partner is going to respond in those moments is going to have less bite to it. So what I mean by that is, if you're always defensive when they bring it up, well, then they're probably going to have a bite to it, or they're going to shut down, or they're going to do whatever. Versus like I actually give you credit for this, because you'll come to me and go, I just thought about something and it made me sad. It really hurt. It really hurt my feelings. And then you'll lean in for a hug. Like, that's really like, it's not you come in, and I'll feel bad. You know what I mean? I won't like, oh, for crying out loud, here we go again. You know what I mean? Or anything like that. But I get it. And what I've noticed is, when I can just reach over to you and love on you a little bit, it kind of moves off pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Versus like, I'm like, gosh, how many years are we gonna have to rehash this crap? You know what I mean? Like that just that doesn't show you that I see you, and then I'm there for you. So.
Yeah. Well, that response would either mean we're done sooner, or that the pain that I'm trying to express would last longer.
Right.
And it would cause problems longer anyway. So, yeah. Okay. So just a little bit around discovery, anniversaries, pain points, things like that. Same concept, right? Don't fake it. Be authentic. Communicate. Make sure you communicate through the process. When we do that, again, to what you were just describing, is those pain in those situations can bring people together when the communication and the response is appropriate and healthy. But when there is a lot of walking on eggshells or explosive responses or lack of safety, then those pain points push people further apart.
Right.
So we want to make sure that we're communicating through health so that we can come closer together. Because if we choose to stay in relationship, this is the primary person that is available to help you heal. Right. So we want to be that person for each other over time. Okay, and the last thing we're going to talk about in terms of navigating some of these milestones is rings. What the heck do you do with rings? I think that is also a universal pain point, but not a universal answer. So everybody's going to feel a little differently. So we're 4.5 years in. I still do not have a ring on my finger, but about 2 years ago, 2 years ago, year and a half, 2 years, something like that. I don't know, a while ago. We did get like a placeholder ring, something that was fairly inexpensive that we ordered online. That was sort of like representative of my growth in this area, but it was still something I wasn't like wearing daily. But I do have it, like if I dress up or if I'm taking photos or something like that. Like sometimes I'll put that on, but I generally still don't wear it. It was kind of a placeholder. But what happened originally was very similar to what happened with the wedding anniversary. And that was, for me, it felt like the ring embodied the energy of that original agreement. And it held that energy and that representation that now meant something very painful to me.
Right.
That it essentially represented the broken promise, right? The ring was supposed to represent the promise, and now it represented the brokenness. And so that really hurt. And it was also very hard because I really, really liked it.
Well, and I think at the time, the ring was actually off getting resized or something. Like we were actually doing the bands to the engagement ring. Is that right?
Yeah,
it was getting attached. And
so we had like the wedding, the engagement band, the wedding band, and an anniversary band that kind of all, they were putting them together, soldering them or whatever they call it, sealing them together.
Right.
So it was so ironic. They happened to be away at the time getting done. So they weren't on my hand when I found out. And then when they came back, it was like a month later or something like that, however long it took. And they came back and I was like, I'm not putting that back on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a really odd, I don't know how that would have gone down had it been on my hand. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how that would have changed things, but it was off my hand when everything happened, and then it never really went back on. And that was kind of sad because I always loved that set. I always loved that ring. And thinking about the wedding photos and the wedding day, I had always looked back at that with so much happiness, and it was so special. And so just all of that held an extreme amount of pain for me. So I took my ring, I put it in my jewelry box, right? Well, a couple years later, I just sort of brought it up, and it was like every once in a while I would sort of look at my ring and think about it, put it on my hand, think about it, and just never felt right. Never felt right. And sometimes it'd be like, ugh, I just can't, like, I don't know, I can't get there, to like wear it. And especially in that first year when I was like, I don't know where we're going to end up. I so totally just cannot fake it. Like I could not, like, I just was like, I can't. Like I'm sitting next to you in church through that first year, and I was like, we were like physically separated in the pew. Like you weren't touching me. Like there's so much that was like, I didn't say I love you for the first 6 months. Like I had to live my truth, my reality in the moment, how I was feeling. And so the ring was just something that I was like, I don't feel good about this. Yeah. And I would look at it and I would think about it and I would not feel good about it. Over time, I felt less of the negative energy towards it. That I don't think ever translated fully into, okay, this is the ring that I want to put back on my finger. But I definitely felt much more neutral about it, I guess. It was a lot less of the negative. And then eventually we were like, hey, well, what if we just got like, because we're not really sure what we want to do long term. Do we want to take the diamonds out of this and make it into something new that like, kind of like how our relationship is technically the same relationship, but it's new, like what do we want to do with this? And so but I'm feeling more open to a ring. So we got the place order. That was sort of step one, right? And then what really surprised me, actually, was when we finally decided to have a ring designed. So what we did end up deciding to do was take the diamond from the old ring, send it in, have a new ring, totally new ring designed, and it has a lot of meaning behind how we're having it designed. So there's a lot of like intentionality behind what the ring represents now. But what surprised me was when the jeweler was like, "Hey, you have to send your ring in." Obviously they need the diamond. It actually brought up emotion for me. And I was surprised when I had to actually release it into the world. The last time that I would like realizing that like this was it, I'm letting it go. That brought some emotion up for me.
Yeah.
It was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I guess I wasn't really expecting that to come up, but maybe that was more grief. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that was very similar to like the pictures and the date and all that stuff for me, because it was kind of like, well, this is what she wants. It stinks. I'd really, because I really enjoyed picking it out for you and designing that ring when I made it and picking the stone. It was really, really cool. And but once again, it's like, hey, sometimes when you hurt people, you got to live into that. You got to understand what that consequence is, and it is what it is. And it's just, well, I didn't mean it. And you're like, okay, everything's back to normal. It just doesn't work that way, And I, as you were sitting there telling the story, I have a different wedding ring too. And so like I was sitting there thinking, I was like, was it a year after?
Yeah, it was, I think, a year after. It was either a year after a year. It would have been around the year of your sobriety and the year, which would have been the year after discovery, I think is when I gave you a new ring. Cause I was like, I don't want you wearing that. Cause there was the whole thing about you sometimes took it off. And I was like, let's just get rid of that.
So it, but it's really special because it's designed differently and it's got some Bible verses in it and things like that are really neat. So it's,
and it has the, I don't know what you call that, like the branches kind of, engraved on the outside, because I wanted it to represent growth, because so for both yours then and mine being designed now, like I wanted it to have like intentionality and to be very specific to represent the relationship now.
Right.
And then the Bible verses had to do with verses that we had used, like that were encouraging to you through.
Yeah.
I think do you remember what they say? This is gonna be so bad. Do you remember what they are?
That's all for today, everyone.
No, but they were very empowering in terms of like your future and your recovery and how God sees you, I think, right?
Yeah.
That was the point.
Yep.
They made such an impact that
That's actually one of those things I really do. I struggle with like remembering Bible verses. You know what I mean? Yeah. So anyway,
that's okay.
It's all right.
Yeah, but the ring was hard, I think, for both of us for different reasons. Again, going back to like, you knew who you were when you picked it out. You knew all of the hopes and dreams and intentions that you had that were put into it, when you gave it to me.
Right.
But then I had all those same hopes and dreams about the relationship, and that was kind of infused. But then when I looked at it after betrayal, it was like, but that didn't happen.
Right.
And so now it reminded me of all the pain and all of the hurt. And so it was I think that has been a difficult process for me, but I don't know. I can't really fake it in a lot of ways. Yeah. So I can't force something if it's not, for me personally, so, and some people may feel very differently. Like some people may wear the ring, think about it differently, but feel totally comfortable wearing the ring. They may do like a ceremonial washing of the ring to shift the energy and then feel good about it. And so I want to be very clear. My journey with all of these things does not have to be your journey.
Yeah. And I guess the thing I would say is, the person who's been manipulated, betrayed, abused, they're in the driver's seat on this, and allow them to have the time. Don't pester them, year 3. Hey, are you ever going to wear your ring? Are you ever going to put your ring on? And I paid a lot of money for that ring. Why don't you put it on? That's just not kind. And so I've seen that out of you. I've seen your attitudes shift. I've seen your thought processes shift. And I think a lot of it's because you've healed a tremendous amount, but also you've been allowed to to navigate through that without pressure. Because I was like, well, I'm not going to put any pressure on you. You'll discover what you want. And I know my own attitude has shifted quite a bit, as we've gotten, and I said this in that previous podcast, it's like, who cares if we ever celebrate another anniversary again? Because we celebrate our relationship every day. And there's all those people out there that celebrate a number on a calendar who are extremely unhealthy. They're abusive to each other and all of those things. So I'd much rather not celebrate a day, but live into health, and as opposed to the other. And so. And
I do think that's a hard shift, right? Because I do think as humans, we put importance on dates and milestones and things. So I do think there is difficulty, right, in that shift going, okay, I'm going to release the story that I have about the milestone and I'm going to step into the day-to-day and I'm going to choose to make that more important in my life.
Right.
And there can be pain with that too, because it's okay that the milestone used to mean something to you.
Right.
And now that you're taking the significance away from that because it's hurtful now and there's discomfort there, and that's okay too. But I think through all this, hopefully what you've been hearing is the more you can communicate in a safe way, pain will come up. Like life happens. These uncomfortable memories happen, the trauma memory, the anniversary date, something about the ring, whatever it is. These things do happen because it's life. Life is going to have all of these things come up over the next so many years. But what helps you navigate through them in a successful way is being able to work through them together. So figuring out like, how can we do that in a way that creates safety for each other, specifically in the beginning, I wouldn't say mostly, but like a lot for the betrayed partner, because they're the ones that are traumatized and wounded by your behavior.
Right.
So that does need to be a specific, like the betrayed partner is probably not going to be super capable month 3 being there for you in some capacities, like as a friend, right? But in other capacities, maybe not. So that will shift over time. But really, over time, we really want to come into being, you now share how you're feeling and when you're overwhelmed. And I can sit here and I can listen how you feel about the ring. I can listen to how you feel about the wedding and the sadness that you have about, and you can tell me that you have decided on your own to celebrate by yourself the anniversary, right? And that doesn't bother me. Yeah. And that's okay. And that's totally fine. And you can also sit here and go, that is absolutely not an option for me, right? Yeah, and you can give me that space. And that's okay. Like that doesn't mean because we view it differently that we're somehow in any sort of, it's not even like a disagreement. It's just.
Yeah, we didn't berate each other. We didn't call each other names. We didn't do any of that during these discussions. We just talked about it.
Yeah, it's just an understanding. Like you're allowed to have your feelings about it.
Right.
I'm allowed to have my feelings about it. And because I was the wounded partner, you did give me a lot of space over the past 4.5 years. And that has shifted. And it might continue to shift. 4.5 years later, I might be like, hey, it's our 20th wedding or whatever. I don't know. Like we've hit 20. Let's celebrate that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes, and it can change. And but yeah, I would just always come back to those, guidelines, right? Like be authentic in whatever you feel. Make sure you guys have agreements that you can come to where you can respect each other in that, and always err on the side of the wounded, err on the side of the more conservative option, and then communicate as things change and provide that safety for each other over time. So
absolutely.
I hope this was helpful. I know that these are things that everybody's going to navigate in one way or another. And I also hope that, the takeaway is you don't have to do it my way, but definitely be authentic to you and don't be afraid to use your voice and to share whatever it is that you need through that process. It's going to be important.
Yeah. Do it authentically and do it safely. Every day is a new opportunity to choose health and freedom. Make that choice today, and we will see you next week.
Woohoo! If you're listening to this, it means you've made it through an entire episode. Part of recovery is spending time engaging in healing and self-growth activities. We are thankful that you chose our podcast to be one of those activities today. Make sure you reward yourself for that accomplishment. If you've enjoyed this episode or this podcast, we would love to hear from you. Please take just a few moments to leave a rating and review, letting us know your experience with Recover You. We not only love hearing how these episodes are helpful, but ratings and reviews help others just like you who are searching for recovery information and support find the podcast too. We can't wait to hear from you. See you next week.